Welcome to the HR BizWheel Quarterly Business Expo. On behalf of Starwheel and HRIC, the Hampton Roads Innovation Collaborative, I am Mr. Ryan. It's great to see you all here tonight. This is, I think this is number 4. This is the 4th one that we've done. The whole idea is to bring people to places that they have never been to before. So if this is the first time you've done the Slover Library, welcome. And the other part is to expose you to businesses that you have not heard of or you don't know how to connect with. So, for example, last month we were at the American Museum in a really great space, and we had HII, for those who don't know, Hunters and Eagles, as we rebranded it to HII. So now you're in the know. Next quarter, we will be at NASA Planning Research Center, and we'll be on the heels of their Industry Partner Day. So that will be a great opportunity to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise have a chance to meet. And tonight we're going to be hearing from Schultz from SVT Robotics, which is a really, really cool story as we grow our own companies from within. Speaking of companies, we have 8,000 companies, more than 8,000 companies on our business directory. There's the QR code scanning through the screen and located around. Make sure your business is on there, because when it's really important for us to know what businesses that we have. We know what businesses we have, and we can start to market our region and highlighting all of the great things that are going on. So it's really, really important. Ready to go? All right. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Sean Washington from the City of Norfolk, because City of Norfolk, they are sponsoring tonight's event. So I'm super, super grateful for your partnership and your sponsorship. And I'll let you share a few words. Sean?
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Is this anybody's first time at Slover? Plenty of gorgeous assets downtown in a wonderful city. This place is very near and dear to me because I got married here. So take care of this to take a little bit. And my wife is here at Slover. Now, welcome to Norfolk. Welcome to the Slover Library. And thank you so much for being here. Because again, the work that we do here is really all about collaboration and partnership. Not one organization can do it all. But when we work together in this type of union, that's when we can really see true results. Anytime I get in front of a crowd and I talk about what we're doing with economic development and kind of our 3 pillars of success, one of the big vision about being a trusted partner. And I always have this joke that when we think about company, you don't always think about trusted partner. Right? And so we want to change that narrative altogether. Also, what does it mean to be able to execute in terms of an inclusive economic development type of function? And what that means is there are great opportunities and resources available, but what do we do to actually connect those resources, to the communities and residents who really need it most? Really about economic mobility and kind of closing the gaps, as we like to say. And last but not least, functionality for the thought process of less is more. A lot of concentration on, again, entrepreneurship, building our businesses, job growth, and cash generation. And I have a great team, some of them in the room today, and we're able to actually execute on that model day in and day out. So I am excited to hear from, I would like to actually say, a great colleague of ours who we've been able to assist here in Norfolk. And I know you're going to hear a little bit about his story and what he's doing to really kind of change the narrative about the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the city of Norfolk. The resources are plentiful. And I can't tell you how many times we get a chance to talk to the community, talk to residents, talk to business owners, and we say, hey, were you aware that you can get help here on any of that? Oh, were you aware of this organization? I wasn't aware here. So my team knows that I can have this stories where we have an opportunity to be
Thank you, Eric.
and really be a central entry point where there's no long door, but you can be assured when you come and talk to my team that you will be provided the highest in customer service in addition to pointing into the right resources to get you to a level of success that you deserve to be. So Again, thank you for being here in our wonderful city. Thank you for choosing Norfolk. And again, please enjoy the rest of this meeting.
And now, super excited to introduce A.K. Schultz. I don't want to steal A.K.'s thunder, but and I was trying to think, this 4 or 5 years ago, when I was at the Washington in Williamsburg, guys walked in and they wanted to start a company and they weren't necessarily sure how they started. And we got it to work. And to watch that progress over the years and to see what they have done, it's really, really cool. It's something that Starfield, we continue to document that. And it's a story for sharing. It's a story with you today. So without further ado, A.K. Schultz, founder of SVT Robotics.
So thanks for having me tonight, Tim. Thank you for the warm welcome. So organizations like this are everything, right? Like when we started this, we were a couple of corporate guys that were running business, but we were enveloped in the warm embrace of having like non-disclosure agreements written for us and accounting. And we had no idea that all of that would melt away and we had to start from zero. We were every single job. And Tim plugged us in to 757 Accelerate. In fact, the last time I spoke here was 2018. It was the capstone pitch for 757 Accelerate. And here we are 4.5 years later, and I'm talking to you, and we're still alive and we're kicking. So when Tim asked me to speak, he asked me to kind of talk about the journey. And like we can kind of walk you through like the typical stuff. And I thought maybe we would focus on a couple of key points, right? And so when you think about starting a company, there's this venture capital playbook that's there that says there's this concept called product market fit, which is, does somebody want to buy it? And do they want to buy it over and over again? Do you have a product that works? Can you make it and can you deliver it? And there's a lot of companies that start with a product and they go search for a market to sell into. And frankly, when we started this, we did not have a product. What we had was a super keen understanding of the market. We had deep expertise in robotics. We had worked on with Walmart and Target and companies like Gallo Wines and helped build the Model 3 assembly line for Tesla. And we saw all the suffering that was there. And so we really started with problem market fit. And problem market fit is understanding that there is something there that is broken, inherently broken, that nobody really knows. And so how do you search for problem market fit? And what does it mean? For us, we wanted to solve a problem that had macroeconomic impact, and we wanted to address the monster under the bed that is there, that no one believes is there or even knows it's there, right? And so if you think about the criteria for problem market fit, or solving a problem that really matters, it has to be something that is there, it's everywhere, yet invisible. It has to be something that in order to solve it, you have to do it 10x better than the status quo. 2x doesn't do it. 2x is derivative, and 2x will not change the way you fundamentally operate. It has to be that much better. And when you solve it, it has to have such a big impact that companies or people are willing to give you money and lose money for years on the promise that the macroeconomic impact is so big that it's worth the risk. So for us, the invisible problem for us was this thing called integration, which is a boring word. But if you have a Roomba at home, you turn it on, you open the app, and it works. And that does not work in factories, right? There is no, well, there might be like a bigger Roomba, but when you want to get an assembly line working or you want to get something like Amazon working, you have to bring all these different technologies together and get them to talk to each other. And this is insanely difficult. And the more permutations that you have, the more things that are interconnected, it creates this like super complex web that I like to call the Jenga tower of code, right? And if you change one thing, the whole tower comes crashing down. And it just, to us, I remember standing on like the mezzanine at the assembly line and at Tesla and thinking to myself, why isn't there like a USB, protocol for all of this? Why are we re-engineering this over and over again? And that suffering of being at the Model 3 plant, it was no fun. Many of you saw the news, but that's where like the ethos of the company was cemented. And it was a year later before I really understood what it was, but that was like the launch. And for us, this industry of robotics, everyone knows it's growing, right? Right now, that industry is limited and bottlenecked by the number of software engineers who understand robotics. And there's 15,000-ish people who know how to do this. The problem is that in 3 years, the demand for robotics will double. And this means, it took us 3 decades to create these 15,000 people. And in 2 years, we got to create another 15,000. It's not going to happen. It's just simply not going to happen. You cannot double that kind of workforce with that level of expertise. It took me years of scar tissue of doing things wrong in order to know what we did. So the idea then is like, well, what if we could productize brain? Like, how do we productize knowledge, right? And it seems impossible, but I'm sure there were accountants that thought, TurboTax is impossible, right? So you just have to decide that this is what you're going to go solve. So our job is not to eliminate integration. Our job is to enable the 15,000 hardworking people who are doing this to do the work of 30. And in a few years, do the work of 45,000. Not only that, right now, the level of technical expertise you need is so arcane that you can't enter it unless you've been in it. It's really hard. You can hire smart people from Google and they will bounce off your company because the level of knowledge is needed. So one of the ideas was, well, what if we could encapsulate the knowledge and then create a product that was visual code that would enable people who, if we don't do this, will be left out of the robotics revolution, that we are inclusive and we can get people who are smart but don't know how to code in Java to go do this. And so that's what we built. And it only took like 4 years and tens of millions of dollars. So now our second venture round, we had product market fit, and we got this, what I thought back then was a big check of $3 million. And suddenly I'm thinking, we're off to the races. We're 10 people. We're going to go to 30. We're going on the attack. And there's this thing called COVID-19 that hits. And so here I am, and we're thinking, how in the hell are we going to hire 20 people when no one can get on a darn airplane? They can't even eat in a restaurant. How are we going to do this? And so we hired 20 people through Zoom. It was a year and a half before we ever met any of those people. We had a party, a company celebration when everything relaxed. And in my speech, I literally said, "It is wonderful to meet your torsos." And think about this, that the paradigm change of your first day at work, you don't meet anybody. Your first day of work is at Zoom, and you operate that, and you've got to operate and hang with a company like Apple, right? You know, and it's really easy to pack it in, but you start to package up and say, what can we do here? Because with 10 of us, we're almost like a hive mind, right? Most of us sat in one room. We heard every conversation we had. We were very aligned in belief structure. And we said, how are we going to replicate this when everyone's sitting in their own room and they're basically with a nice shirt and underwear down, you know, below the camera? And what we figured out was the thing that made us us was this cultural alignment. So we came up and we said, okay, we've got to create these cultural principles in order for this to work. And so we came up with 5, and the original idea was to do 10, and I was against 10 because it's hard to remember 10 things. And so the debate spurred on, and I said, okay, we will go with 10. If anyone in this room can recite the 10 commandments. Nobody. It's the most famous list of 10 of the lists of 10, right? Like, and nobody could remember it. Now, somebody in this room probably could, but no one in that room could. So we went with 5. And we wanted to make sure those 5 were meaningful and didn't look like a textbook out of the, basically techno jargon from the MBA playbook. So the first one that we created was be exothermic. I'm wearing a t-shirt. What does that mean? So I'm a nerd. I like sciencey words. Exothermic is a chemical reaction that means it gives off more energy than it requires. But people can be exothermic. You know them. They're the people that lift everybody up, right? And sometimes they're not actually like outgoing. They could be just like devs that help every other dev be better, right? It manifests in many ways. Now, the opposite is an energy vampire. And this is the person, you come out of the meeting and you walk out and you're like, I either need a nap, a Red Bull, or a Snickers bar. And I don't care how skilled they are, but there's this thing called the a-hole tax that makes everybody in your company worse. And you just cannot have that. You don't let them in, but if they get in, you've got to make them go. Otherwise, it can wreck the whole thing. The next one is, well, I'm not going to do all 5, I'll do 3, but choose the moral high ground. Now, every company has their don't be evil kind of thing, right? But for me, the most important word is the word choose. Because morality is not your beliefs. It's not an adjective. It is your actions. It is what you choose to do in a tough situation. And so if I think about evil companies, how does a company become evil? And it rarely is because there's some guy sitting in a big chair, petting a cat, putting laser beams on sharks, right? It is usually thousands of people who make almost good decisions. And the word technically correct, technically legal, technically not screwing the customer gets used all the time. And when that happens hundreds of times a day amongst thousands of people, you end up with an oil spill in the Gulf. You end up with a clean diesel problem. And the real problem with that, usually no one can be blamed because they were all technically correct. And if I had the choice of taking over a company, I'll take over the laser beam guys company any day, right? Because that's one problem to solve, not thousands. And the only way for me to make sure that happened is to institute this in the beginning. Now, one of the benefits of this structure is not just to have a fancy list. It is a list of things that the employees can use against their boss. call their boss out. It enables them to speak truth to power in a structured way that they can't say no to, right? And there's this concept called HIPPOs, highest paid person's opinion, right? This makes it so the HIPPOs don't always win. And that is crucial in a tech company because the HIPPOs usually have the least amount of information, the least amount of knowledge, and the least amount of technical skill in this subject to make happen. So you have to be able to harvest data from the bottom. GOFA. Now this one, slightly irreverent, means go full assed. And that's the opposite of half-assed. So what does that mean? It actually doesn't mean work hard. What it means is a commitment to solving problems that are insanely hard. Running towards that instead of running away from it. When you talk to people in the Bay Area, one of the things they say, and you like communicate like this impossible problem, they're like, that's a really interesting problem. I'd like to work on that. As opposed to, maybe we should work on something easier because I know I can achieve that. But it's a completely different mindset. And so one of the concepts in startup world is this saying called moonshot. Like companies that are moonshots are like the companies that take it all away. I think it's a great saying because you cannot go to space by building a faster airplane. Doesn't work. There's like engines don't work, wings are useless. Pilot needs like oxygen and stuff, right? Like it breaks everything. And here's the thing, like when you are literally inventing everything. You're inventing things that have never been invented. Now, here's actually how you know your company is disrupting things. When you experience once you succeed at something, you suddenly like fail at 27 other things. Because you're putting tracks in the snow in Antarctica. No one has walked this ground before. And there are people whose mindset is like, well, they should have thought of this before. Like, we are they. We are they. Like, you want the person who embraced it is like, cool, like, I want to work on that. And like, put a spaceship there's someone from NASA here, but like, yeah, there you go. When you get up in space, you like learn this thing that, hey, like, gravity is very convenient towards peeing. Without gravity, things get kind of messy, right? So like somebody said, I want to invent that space toilet. I don't know who it was, but I'm sure all the astronauts appreciate who did it. And so sometimes it's a mundane thing that you have to go build. And it's just this attitude to run into the burning buildings over and over again. If you don't have that, it doesn't work. Now, here's the other thing about culture. Startups are not about foosball tables or ping pong tables or gourmet sparkling water. Startups are hard. It's tough. Like you are literally going out of business constantly. Like you are negative margin and the percentages negative are obscene. Like coming from a guy who worked for a Swiss company, like it's mind blowing how big the negative numbers are. And there are days when you're like, man, I don't know if I can make this work. And that happens to every single person in the company. At some point, there's someone in my company right now thinking, but they're latching on to one of these principles. They're latching on to the why of your company. And that why cannot be profit. It doesn't work. Right? That's the difference between a mercenary and a soldier who's sworn an oath. It's a big difference. And so how do you do that in a commercial company? You have to unite on something that makes a difference. And for us, like literally what's causing inflation is manpower, is labor. solving this problem will reduce the price of a can of green beans. Like, it matters. It will matter to somebody. So, now there's something else about what we've done. We've embraced the value of connectivity, and in integration, it's a technical connectivity, but we realized really quickly that it's more than the technical side. There is a commercial connectivity. There is a social connectivity. People buy. When you buy $1 million robot, you're buying it from someone you trust, right? So you have to establish this connectivity in a different way. And when you create a company like this, that's in the middle. My belief is the thing you have to do is focus on giving first. Put value out before you take value in. And this has to be on your mind constantly. So if you do that, people will come to you because you're giving. Like, we were writing integrations to companies without even a customer to benefit, because we wanted to build the ecosystem. We wanted to create a gravitational force that suddenly cemented this network effect that at some point starts to create this event horizon that drives everything towards you. Now, this is us. Was that 2020? These nodes, the blue nodes are customers, the little circles are partners, and the tree trunk looking thing is stages of us giving money away to robot companies, bringing them into the platform on the off chance a customer would want them. So I was on a walk with my daughter, and she just comes out with some zingers. And we were talking about like what this meant, because in the commercial world, there's a problem that customers hate to tell their competitors that you're good. However, the partners are the opposite. And so I'm describing this. She's like, oh, it's like bubonic plague. You're not trying to affect people directly. What you need is fleas and rats. Right? So I'm trying to think how to put that in a venture capital pitch. It doesn't really work that great. But it is absolutely, the mechanics of that model is true. And what you see is the business volume that is repeat business is largely driven by partners. So that's us the next year. And what you see is the mathematics of giving first, taking over. Takes a lot of like money and tremendous courage to go do that, but like it is fun when it starts to pay off. And for me, I believe that there is a mathematical model to karma. I don't think it's garbage. I don't think it's like bullshit. I can look at probabilities and say, yeah, I can see how you have cascading probabilities. Right? Math nerd, right? So you start thinking, well, if you actually, and if you're not just doing it because you want, you're doing it for evil capitalist reasons, and I am an evil capitalist, believe me, but you do things like sponsor robot teams. You give your time, right? Because there's gonna be some kid that it just changes the trajectory of their life. That, I don't know how that's going to benefit the company, but it will. You run the numbers enough, it will help. So our job is to create this company with a basis in mathematical karma. And that karma affected me. Tim, Paul, Nancy, you were a mentor. Evans, who's not here today. Every single thing they helped us with increased the probability of me standing here today by a little bit. But when you add those probabilities up, you're here. And if you flip the odds 2% from 51 to 49, death. And so for those of us here, some are entrepreneurs, some are people trying to help the entrepreneur ecosystem. It works, it helps. And not every company is going to make it, but every company that fails there will be an outcome that's positive, right? And that is actually literally the VC model, is you're playing the odds that one out of your portfolio is going to go Facebook. So, in closing, I would encourage, well, first of all, I want to thank all the exothermic people that have helped us through this journey. Sean, City of Norfolk, like, we were looking for a place, and Bob, he did not have to do what he did, but he did. And so those things made a difference and just increased our odds. So thank you to all of you that enabled me to be standing here in 2023. And if you haven't been here on the journey, join in. Thanks.
One thing about this region, I've been fighting this fight for 12 years, and there's only a couple things that were going on during that time frame. And much of which was around the corner, this place called Patch. And we had a lot of fun there. And there was only a few events that we had fun. And we had great times. Fast forward to 3.5 years ago, I took the position of the Executive Director for Starkville. And we had a monthly newsletter that we would have 12 events a month. We would had an increase there. We committed to doing having one news article a week about startups. And like I said, it was a monthly newsletter. And so now when we look at today, we have more than 50 events that are happening every single month. We have had to increase the volume of newsletters to now we're doing newsletter every single week. Because the feedback we received was the newsletters are too long. And it was like, that's a reflection of this region. There's so much that's going on, and everybody is invited to share what they're doing. And it's about building it. And during that time, we added a jobs board for startups so that we can better tell what the startup community looks like. We have a Urban 4 show that we're 160 episodes in with that. We're continuing to build. At the same time, you had HRIC that was doing their thing. They had critical mass. They had Tech Tuesdays, and we started working together. And unbeknownst to us, the companies that started 12 years ago, they all started to grow up. And we were focused on educating the early stage companies. HRC was working on it. They worked with the companies that had the product market fit. They were more mature. They were doing the things that they had to do to build that customer base. So it made sense to start collaborating, working together. And so now for the news for the evening, the big announcement is thanks to some hard work from both boards, Paul, and we are merging HRIC into Starkville to create Innovate Hampton Roads. Super exciting news for us, but that is a sign of the maturity of the region. We're growing. We have to get companies that are talking together. We're growing together so that we can make those next steps together. So super excited about that. Thank you to both boards, past board members that are still here supporting us tonight. Super exciting times ahead. Please get involved. This is about innovating. That's dream big. That's some big goals. We can work together and we can make those goals happen. And with that, thank you for joining us tonight. Drink, what's left, eats what's left. Thank you so much, Sean. The City of Norfolk, Slover Library. You all have a great evening.